It had been 10 degrees below zero the day before Christmas, and the only thing in my driveway that would start was the old 64 C10. The battery had gone dead in the dually and the Suburban's fuel system froze up, but the old carbureted 400 small block fired right up. So anyway, we used it to get our Christmas shopping done the day before Christmas, and then Christmas Day, Vicky was busy in the kitchen getting Christmas dinner ready for everybody. Turkey, noodles, mashed potatoes, gravy, sweet potatoes and corn, and my mom brought down her famous homemade rolls. We all sat down and had dinner together, and then afterwards it was time to open presents. I think everybody was eager for that except for Scrap, who was in a turkey coma right in the middle of the living room floor. Billy did the honors of handing out the gifts this year, as well as picking the movie to watch while we're opening presents. Of course, the very first gift handed out was Tommy's torque wrench and a pair of basketballs that Tony took great pride in wrapping himself. Once we got that one out of the way, everything else went pretty smooth until it was time for Tess to open her gift from Tony. Since they flew out from California, obviously they couldn't bring anything big on the plane, but Tony managed to get a couple boxes drop shipped direct from RC Comp, a brand new pair of matching front wheels for her Maverick street car. Huge shout out to Tony Bumpus for getting that taken care of for us. So that pretty much wrapped up Christmas for us at our house. But Monday morning, despite the lingering frigid temperatures, I began the uphill battle of trying to get all the frozen vehicles in my driveway restarted. But first I need to get the pellet stove restarted in the basement before all our pipes freeze. But once I had all that taken care of, it was time to go out and start trying to get this John Deere started. I had left it running out in the driveway, but the fuel lines froze up on it and it died in the middle of the night with the key on. So I fire up the 64 and I start headed down to Mark's for the cure for 2 dead batteries and 2 frozen fuel systems. What do you got for me?
Well, I got pre and post. I got maintenance treatment and lack of maintenance treatment. Which one do you need?
I need the lack of maintenance treatment.
Really? I'm surprised.
The stuff worked like a champ in the John Deere. It fired up almost immediately after we circulated the fuel, and I started plowing the driveway out and clearing snow around the race car trailers sitting out beside the barn. Some of the drifts out back were over 2 feet deep, and there's no way it's going to melt before it's time for us to hook the trailers up and head down south right after Christmas. So I hooked the trailer up, moved it a little bit, and finished cleaning up the driveway around it, and then set the trailer back where I got it from. I went ahead and cleaned up the rest of the driveway while Jeremy started working on replacing the battery in my dually. And by the time I had the driveway finished up, the old dually was sitting there running, but the Suburban, the distributor cap froze and cracked, causing an ignition problem, and the fuel system was froze. 2 bottles of heat treatment in the fuel tank and cycling the fuel system on and off cured that problem pretty quick. So finally, after 2 days of sub-zero temperatures, I've got everything back up and running. By this time, I'm about froze to death, so I go inside the shop to check on Tess and Tony and see how they're doing working on the Mustang. Tess was busy masking up the front end to repaint the headlight buckets and the rubber bumper strip across the front of the car, and Tony was busy working on the interior, tightening up the mirrors, steering column, and door panels that were loose. So they stayed back at the shop working on the car, while Vicky and I and the boys went to Vicky's mom's house for Christmas dinner and, believe it or not, a rat race.
Go.
Oh, man. Get out of there. Mine's defective.
By Tuesday, 20 degrees outside felt like a heat wave. The snow and ice was melting off the barn roof as Tess and Tony unmasked the front of the Mustang to reveal its new facial. Tess even replaced the Ford emblem on the front of the car. While they work in the shop at my place, down at Jeremy's, there's a different project going on. He stopped down early this morning to get the 64 and take it down to his shop where he can let it melt off and then give it a bath since his garage has running water. All the road salt and slush that's built up underneath the truck rusts everything. And if we don't get it cleaned up right away, there won't be anything left of this truck by summer. So I hopped in the dually and I decided to go down and check on Jeremy and let him know that there's been a slight change in plans on what vehicle I'm taking this weekend to head south. Initially, I was planning on taking the 64 and using it to pull the trailer. But as of last night, it sounds like I'm going to have a couple friends of mine from out of town joining me on the trip.
What?
There's been a slight change in plans. Don't think I'm taking the 64. I think I'm taking the Suburban.
You don't say.
And it's got some problems.
You don't say.
The wiper arms had frozen to the windshield while the key had been left on trying to diagnose why the thing wouldn't start. Plus the steering seems a little loose, so we've got a considerable amount of work to do to the Suburban if we're taking it instead.
Well, now that I got that mess cleaned up, time to go get the Suburban.
Before I went down to tell Jeremy the good news, I called Mark and ordered all the parts in for the Suburban that we were going to need. So Jeremy brought the 64 back, picked up the Suburban, and headed to Mark's.
Oh, I didn't get a box, do I?
Get a box today.
Oh boy.
You'll drop it out in the snow and tear everything up.
Well, it's okay.
You want to bring it back, but the box is all tore up.
Uh-huh. Better chop it on my switch.
Yeah, I am. You know me. I had to have one thing to bite me in the butt.
Yeah.
Had to be at least one thing. So.
Well, I still got a bite, so.
Oh boy. Well, let's see. Hopefully it won't be too big of a bite.
You sure them guys can find my place?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Thing two's on it. He knows where you live.
Well, I better get this crap done before William starts parking.
Get to work.
So after picking up the parts that I ordered at Mark's, Jeremy notices that the steering is extremely loose in the Suburban. So he goes back and checks it all out and orders a new idler arm to be delivered to his shop by none other than Thing 2.
You.
That just came from your brother's house. Now I get to deal with you recording me and everything.
Yeah.
I don't get a break around here.
So while Jeremy continues to work on the front suspension on the Suburban, back at my shop, Tony and Tess are working on the alignment on their Mustang. And in order to set the bump steer on the car, you pretty much have to lay on the floor. And even though they laid Visqueen down on the floor to stay clean, Tess managed to end up with a dirty butt. While they're busy working on the Mustang, I start packing up everything I'm going to need in the trunk of the Malibu to go test this weekend down south. It was almost dinner time when I got a call from Jeremy letting me know that Mark had evidently delivered some incorrect parts to Jeremy's shop for my Suburban. And Jeremy is not happy.
If you're going to Bob Evans, I bring you parts. You can at least bring us some food.
You gotta bring me the right parts first. The reason I'm here and having to stop there for dinner is because why?
Someone sold you the wrong parts.
Let me guess. Let me guess.
Yeah.
It looks like you two are playing dumb. Well, not really.
I ordered the switch in the dash for the four-wheel drive in the Suburban, and Mark sent back a brake light switch.
It's almost the same. Got push buttons, you got push buttons, you got plug-ins. Look, terminals. I'm just saying.
William's about ready to pull his hair out.
Oh, he'll look like me.
Huh.
So after barely catching Mark before he closed the store, Jeremy got all the correct parts and went back to the shop and got busy putting the thing back together. The four-wheel drive switch in the dash was pretty simple, but the idler arm was kind of a pain in the butt. I'm just hoping that when he puts this thing back together and takes it for a test drive,
Time for grease.
the service engine light's off, the wipers work, and the steering's better than it was before.
I'm on my test drive. This gearbox is still funky. I'm gonna try one more thing, and then after that, I'm just gonna have to pull it and tell Chumpy I need a new gearbox. Good grief. Although the check engine light is not on anymore. Ta-da! And your wipers work.
So that brings us to Wednesday, and finally, the sun's out, the temperatures are rising, and everything is finally starting to melt off. And evidently, we got a big shipment from UPS this morning, and Vicky's out there trying to get everything opened up and sorted out. Tommy and Allison's calendars showed up, and Vicky was pretty excited about that. The calendars feature all the different cars from Street Racing Channel, including the 55 Chevy, the Malibu, and even Vicky's C10 pickup. In other news, beanies are finally back in stock, as well as some of the gasoline and Freedom stuff. While Vicky's working on merchandise in the shop, Kenny and I start chilling nitrous bottles and shoveling snow off the trailer deck to let it melt off. And that's when we found another problem. The fenders on Billy's trailer are about to fall off. Billy had used this trailer recently to go over to Indiana, and evidently some of the welds on these fenders didn't survive the trip. And since Jeremy's currently waiting on parts for the Suburban, he came right up and grabbed these things to take them back to his shop to make repairs to them right away. Where's my Suburban?
Down in my garage.
Why isn't it fixed?
You'll have to ask your buddy Chumpo.
On top of everything else that was wrong with the Suburban, Jeremy found that the steering shaft was worn out and the rag joint was ready to fall apart. So while he's down at the shop working on those fenders and waiting on parts, Kenny and I start filling nitrous bottles and trying to get everything done that we can get done while we're waiting on parts for the Suburban and Now we're doing repairs to these trailer fenders. The last thing I want to deal with on a trip down south is my trailer fenders coming off and possibly hitting the Malibu. So Jeremy goes out of his way to make sure there's plenty of weld bead to hold these things together for my trip. Meanwhile, Tony's working on a wide open throttle switch on the Mustang, and Hartley decided to come back to work instead of taking the week off on vacation. Allison stopped by to drop off some posters to be signed and to drop off Tommy the cripple, who's headed to the orthopedic doctor with his mom this afternoon to find out whether his ACL has been torn. Right after Vicky and Tommy left, I got a call from Jeremy letting me know that he needs some spray paint to cover up all these new welds on these fenders. So I fire up a 64 and head down to Jeremy's shop to drop off some black spray paint and hopefully check out the progress he's made on the Suburban. And I can tell by the sound of his voice, he's starting to get aggravated with all this pressure at the last minute.
Any other fine messes?
Not yet.
Yeah, give you a minute.
While I'm down at Jeremy's catching hell from him, Tony and Tess are back at my shop finishing up the alignment on the Mustang and taking some video for their YouTube channel. At this point, we're less than 24 hours away from the time we need to leave to head south. And luckily, the parts finally came for the Suburban that Jeremy's been waiting on. I just hope and pray for Mark's sake that this time the parts that he shipped are the correct ones. Because if they're not, old Uncle Bucko's gonna have a conniption fit. The last piece of the puzzle is a brand new steering shaft that links the steering column to the steering gear box in the front of the Suburban. Once he finished up installing it, it was time for me to back the Suburban out while he keeps an eye on Milo, the shop cat, who's evidently a door dasher. Anyway, Jeremy holds on to Milo while I back the Suburban out to take it for a test drive, and lo and behold, this thing drives better than it has in a long time. And since this thing's filthy dirty and we're pressed for time, I went ahead and took it to the car wash to run it through real quick before the sun goes down. That way, hopefully it'll have time to dry out before the windows and the doors freeze shut overnight. Normally, I would have waited till tomorrow morning to do it, but since I've still got to put the fenders on the trailer, hook the trailer to the Suburban, load the Malibu, all the luggage, the nitrous bottles, tools, fuel, and everything else, I just don't want to put everything off until tomorrow morning and end up behind the 8 ball, more so than what I already am. Anyway, I made it back to the shop just about sunset, gathered up Vicky and Tess, and we met up with Billy and Tony down at Tumbleweed for dinner. They had been working at Billy's shop trying to get the Falcon ready, and after dinner, we all went back there to load it up on Billy's trailer so that we can bring it and the truck and trailer back to my house, and Tony and Tess can load their Mustang behind the Falcon in the morning, so long as nothing else falls apart between now and then. What are you doing?
I got fired.
Secret squirrel shit?
Secret squirrel shit.
So we're going to a private test session or 2 or 3 or 4 down south.
Down south.
We can't say where. Oh my, what are you? Are you seriously lighting fires inside the car?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to a private test session or 2 or 3 or 4 down south. We can't say where we're going because, well, they're private test sessions.
We don't want a bunch of squirrels there. We don't
Squirrels?
want a bunch of squirrels. Pyramid, street race pyramid. The squirrels are at the bottom. They just go there and fuck shit up.
All right, so we're just about ready to call it a night out here in the shop. I've got the Malibu ready to go. It's as ready as I can get it. We've got fuel jugs filled up. We've got all the nitrous bottles filled. The trailer fenders are fixed. All we gotta do is bolt them on the trailer in the morning, hook the trailer to the Suburban, and I think just load up luggage, fuel jugs, nitrous bottles, handful of tools, and I think we're ready to go. Now, I do have a co-pilot. Actually, I have 2 co-pilots coming to make the trip down with me. I can't really tell you where we're going. You'll figure it out eventually. But my 2 co-pilots are coming from Long Island, New York. Mr. Tyler No Boost and his girlfriend Joe are on their way here. They should be here first thing in the morning, and they'll probably crash and sleep because it's like a 10-hour drive from Long Island to get here. And then we're going to load up and leave here for an 8 to 10 hour drive south, and we'll see how things go from there. But we're headed south for private testing. Can't tell you where we're going. It's not a spectator thing, so I can't say where we're headed, but we are headed south. We're trying to get out of this cold weather and go test the Malibu test the Mustang, and we're gonna go test the Falcon and see how things go. Now, obviously, while I'm out on the road, it's gonna be a little bit more difficult for me to post videos. I'll do my best. I don't know if I'll be able to do this on the road with where we're going and everything that's going on. May have to wait for a video until I get back. But I might be able to go live or do something like that and do some Q&A while we're on the road. Who knows? If you know Tyler DeSantis, Tyler No Boost from Long Island, New York, you already know that guy's a character. So be watching for that. We may go live on the trip down and act up a little bit. You never know what we're going to get into there. Like I said, Joe's coming with us, his girlfriend. She's going to do some video work for me. It's hard to tell what's about to happen. So I appreciate everybody watching. I hope everybody had a good Christmas. Hopefully everybody's going to have a good New Year. Oh yeah, don't forget, Vicky told me not to forget this, so I'm not forgetting it. Make sure you go to the website and check out all the merch. She's got everything updated. All the inventory's updated. There's gasoline and freedom stuff back in. Beanies are back in. Whole bunch of stuff. And if you want to get one of those calendars or one of those posters like you saw in the video, that is on gen2garage.com. So oldmansgarage.shop for the merchandise from here at my shop, gen2garage.com for the posters and for the calendars. Good night, everybody.